She was the strongest explorer in the guild, but after being defeated by the final boss, she gets recruited to help manage the dungeon instead. The story begins with a girl named Clay, as she's told by her father to be on guard when she's in the dungeon. He stabs a leaf in front of her eyes to show her that even blinking can be the cause of her death, so she can't just rely on her eyes. He takes out a sword and cuts it with his knife, telling her she needs to be able to cut through steel, because there are monsters with scales that are just as tough. They start fighting each other with knives, and her father mentions that since they are thieves, they don't have the strength of warriors, and they can't use magic, but the monsters won't show them any mercy. He tells her to keep fighting until she wins, and he tells her she needs to be able to fight continuously for at least 10 hours. We see Clay preparing to fight a two-headed wolf, and she thinks about how it's been 3 years since her father vanished into the dungeon. The monster attacks her, but she jumps up above it, and she uses her knife to defeat it instantly. The wolf drops a gem, and we learn that the 7th floor is the deepest anyone has reached in this dungeon, but she was able to defeat the 8th floor guardian all on her own, and she thinks it's all thanks to the harsh training her father put her through. She continued training for 3 years since her father disappeared, but she still doesn't feel like she's near his level. She continues to the next floor, and thinks about how the guardians of the previous floor were just regular monsters. On the next level, she senses 3 goblins walking as a group, but she's not surprised, because after the 5th floor, the monsters start working together. There are 2 big goblins, and Clay is surprised because she has never seen goblins with so much muscle. She notices a weak goblin behind them, and decides to attack it first. She throws the gem to distract them, and she goes straight for the weaker goblin, cutting off its head. She slashes one of the other goblin's arms, and it starts paralyzing its body. The other one tries to smash her to the ground, but she cuts off his hands and proceeds to finish both of them. All 3 of them drop gems, and she notes that the monsters that are on the deep floors have a higher chance of dropping gems. She notes that since 3 goblins were placed in front of a door, there must be something strong on the other side. She wonders if she should fight the monster or leave it for another time, but she ends up deciding to open the door. She sees a huge minotaur and immediately realizes her paralysis won't work on it. The minotaur attacks her with an axe, and as she dodges it, she realizes it isn't just strong, but fast as well. She decides to attack its legs first, but as she hits it, it doesn't do any damage. As she thinks about attacking its dominant arm, the minotaur suddenly throws its axe at her. She barely manages to dodge it, and the axe ends up breaking the wall. She's surprised the dungeon wall can be broken, and the minotaur suddenly starts speaking. He seems worried about breaking the wall, and decides he doesn't want to fight anymore because he's worried the administrator will be back soon. Clay is confused, but the minotaur tells her to look closely at the room, and she sees that it's a private one. She wonders who it belongs to, and suddenly senses someone insanely strong approaching. She worries about who is about to appear, but it's only a small girl, and she worries about the broken wall. She apologizes to the minotaur and tells him to return to his post while she takes care of the rest. Clay thinks about the power she sensed and wonders if it was really coming from the girl. She tells Clay to follow her so she can explain everything, but Clay reminds herself to keep her guard up because she could be a monster trying to lure her into a trap. They reach a hallway, and the girl tells Clay that there are no monsters in the residential quarters, so she can consider it a safe zone. Clay wonders if it isn't part of the dungeon, and she notes that dungeon functions aren't allocated to the residential quarters. Clay wonders why she's living in such a place, so she takes her to a booth and introduces herself as Belle, the manager of the dungeon. Clay is surprised when she knows her name, and she says it's because she's an administrator, so she can sense adventurers. Before telling her anything more, she suddenly asks Clay to work for her in the dungeon. She mentions she has a hard time finding a person that the monsters don't look down on, and Clay wonders why she didn't ask at the Explorers Guild, but she mentions the job wasn't possible for them since they were stuck on the 7th floor. Clay asks her if she's the dungeon's boss, so she notes that there are 10 floors, and adventurers who clear all of them will face her. Clay wants Belle to fight her, and she mentions that if she wins, she will leave the dungeon, but if she loses, she will work for her. Clay thinks about her father, who was way stronger than her, but he disappeared after entering the dungeon. She thinks he reached the 10th floor, where he met with Belle, and she wonders if she defeated him. She knows if she directly asks Belle, she will tell her what happened, but she wants to fight her first. Belle grabs her hand and teleports them to the final room of the dungeon. Clay is surprised there are no walls there, and Belle notes that people can't enter the room without following a series of steps. She usually comes with demons when she enters the room, so she wonders if Clay is okay if there are no demons there, which makes her think she's giving her a handicap. But Belle says that without the demons, she can fight without any restrictions. As Clay gets ready to fight, she thinks about how her father was going to die in a dungeon because he was always challenging them, but she wants to know if he managed to reach the 10th floor and whether Belle is capable of killing him. Clay throws a knife at her, and she blocks it with her staff. Clay gets close and keeps attacking with the other knife, but she parries all of her attacks. Clay decides to keep close to her, or else she will be in range of her magic. She keeps trying to take her down, but Belle jumps back, and she's impressed by her skills. Belle starts using a spell, so Clay tries to stop her, but it's too late and she attacks Clay with lightning. And while being hit by the spell, she thinks that even her father wouldn't be able to handle it. She wakes up in Belle's room, who mentions she has changed its position so it isn't directly next to the dungeon, and they are now on the 11th basement floor. She reminds Clay of her promise to work for her, and she wonders if managing a dungeon means she will become a boss. Belle notes she just needs to handle the dungeon, but Clay has no idea what she's talking about. She gives her the basics of what she needs to do, and she mentions that unlike in a living dungeon, monsters don't just spawn here, so they need to hire them from the demon world. Clay mentions she works for the Thieves Guild, so she needs to go back to quit, but Belle notes the previous administrator of the dungeons started the Thieves Guild, so she will take care of her problem. Clay thinks the whole situation is beyond her understanding, but she has no other choice than to start working there. Belle mentions that if she decides to leave, she will have to conceal her memories, so it will be better if she stays. Belle decides to make a room for her, and Clay mentions the hall would be a better place for her, because she will be able to respond to any problems quickly, but Belle can't allow her to stay there. She gives Clay her contract, and after reading it, she's shocked that Belle is giving her 5 gold coins a day, but Belle notes she has plenty of money. Belle shows Clay her room, and she mentions it was originally built to be a guest room, but Clay wonders why she would make such a room when there aren't any guests. She's surprised when she sees there are windows, and Belle notes that they only shine light to make it look like the sky. Clay wonders why there are lights in the room when the hallway is bright, so Belle mentions the dungeon was dark at first, but she had to brighten it after getting complaints from the monsters. She could have included night vision in the requirements when hiring monsters, but then they would have gotten fewer applications. She's about to give Clay a tour of the residential quarters, but she wonders if Belle isn't busy. She notes her main task for the day was to recruit her, so she's free for the rest of the day. There are only low-level adventurers in the dungeon at the moment, and she doesn't need to watch the first few floors, but once someone gets to the later floor, it's her duty to observe them. She takes Clay to the control room, and she's shocked by how dirty it is, so Belle realizes she needs to clean it up because she isn't alone anymore. She keeps showing Clay around the place, and as they reach the dining room, Clay notes that it's a little small, but Belle mentions she made it too big the first time around, so she turned the rest of it into a storehouse. Clay starts getting chilly due to the cooling effect in the storehouse, and she's surprised when Belle mentions that the ingredients come from the monsters in the dungeon, but she notes that they all agreed to it in their contracts. They come across a weird room, and Belle says it's for the stuff that might be used in the future. Clay realizes everything in the room is trash, and as Belle tries to convince her otherwise, she pushes her out and tells her to move on. They reach a room with a huge crystal, and Belle explains it's a room for using fixed magic along the crystal. She tells Clay to grab a rock from the boxes, and as she goes towards them, she's shocked to see the boxes are full of gems. Belle wonders if Clay knows the number of monsters she has killed, which makes her realize that while trying to survive in the dungeon, she has killed a lot of monsters, so she thinks the gems are used to revive them. Belle explains that before going to the dungeon, a monster's body is copied, while their real body is placed inside a gem, and the stone is put inside the fake body. There's an unsealing circle in the monster quarters, so when they die, their real body is transferred there. Belle tells her she will have to interact with monsters on the 10th floor, so it's better for her to have gems, otherwise it might be too late. Clay thinks about how much she struggled against the minotaur she faced on the 9th floor, so she thinks she needs to get stronger, and Belle notes she won't have a problem finding a training partner, because most of the people hired for the deeper floors agree to join because they want to get stronger. She tells Clay to step in a circle, where she transforms her into a gem and places her into a duplicate body. As she wakes up, she's embarrassed because she's naked, and Belle apologizes to her, because she usually uses it on monsters who are already naked, so she forgot she can't copy clothes. She uses a teleportation circle to take them to the 1st floor, where they meet with a man named Rangard, who looks over the first 4 floors. He remembers Clay as the girl who had no friends, because she didn't form any parties and entered the dungeon on her own, but Clay finds him rude. She notes that dungeons aren't a place to have fun with your friends, and she can use her skills better when she's alone, but it's also true that she has no friends. After that, Belle tells him that Clay wants to work more, but even though he has nothing for her to do, she wants him to help her. Rangard tells Clay they need to fill up the treasure chest on the 1st floor without being seen by the adventurers. He mentions that even though most of the adventurers on the 1st floor aren't very good, there are still a large number of them, so it's nearly impossible not to be seen. To show him what she's capable of, she disappears in front of his eyes and appears behind him, and notes that he's a dwarf who has poor horizontal visibility, so she used it to her advantage. She mentions that when people see something unusual, they look at it again to confirm it, so all she needs to do is make sure they don't see her twice. A golem tells Rangard they have run out of resources to fill the treasure chests on the 2nd floor, so they have to get supplies from the 3rd floor. So he tells Clay to bring as much as she can, and the golems will take care of the rest. He mentions that the golems use the well to jump down, but it won't be possible for her, so he advises her to use the stairs, but she wants to use the well. Before she jumps down, Rangard reminds her she will die if she messes up, but she knows they can die anytime whenever they're in a dungeon. She runs across the walls and reaches the 3rd floor, where the golems give her the supply boxes. Rangard tells her to bring 1 box, but she carries 2, and as she jumps back up to the 1st floor, the golems are impressed by her. Rangard thanks her for the help, and he mentions that the golems also want to learn how to run on the walls from her, but she refuses. Clay returns to Belle as she is cleaning, but when she decides to do other work first, Clay tells her that cleaning comes first, and she decides to help her. Clay wonders which stuff she wants to throw out, but she wants to keep everything. After cleaning, Clay sees Belle is in a good mood, and she mentions she also doesn't have any friends, so they can be each other's first friends, which makes Clay happy, but she says she can't consider her as a friend since she's her boss. They continue with cleaning, but instead of throwing anything away, they put it all in the 3rd storage room, because Belle thinks they might be useful in the future. Rangard arrives, and is shocked by how clean the room is, but he tells Clay that Belle is a person who can't live without making a mess, so she can't live in such a clean room. Belle wonders why Rangard is there, and he gives the chair she asked for, which impresses Clay that he made it himself. He thinks anyone could make it, and Belle mentions he's involved in making all the weapons and armor in the dungeon, but he gets embarrassed. After he leaves, Belle notes that a party has entered the 7th floor, so they are going to observe them using the mirror, and as she pours magic into it, a map appears. They see the party consists of 5 people, and Belle mentions they are known as the Ice Wolf Fangs. She wonders if Clay knows them, and she says they tried to recruit her, but she refused their offer. Belle notes they are one of the top parties, and have made it the farthest, but Clay is confused why they aren't moving. Belle tells her that after reaching the 7th floor, they fight the first enemy and always retreat, so she thinks it's impossible for them to reach the 8th floor, but they have a good reputation among the monsters, because it's fun for them to fight with someone of equal strength. She sees that Clay also wants an exciting fight, so she asks her if she wants to face the party, but she thinks she shouldn't interact with the adventurers. Belle calls a monster named Kreitz, and notes that she wants to control one of his underlings, and Clay thinks about how impressive it is that Belle is using magic to display so much information on the mirrors. She tells Clay she's going to fight the party by going inside one of the skeletons that are with Kreitz. Clay thinks she isn't thin enough to fit inside it, and Belle notes she has been given control of the skeleton, so she's going to swap out its operation with her copy. Clay says she understands, but seeing the look on her face, Belle knows she has given up on trying to understand. Belle transfers her to the skeleton, and Clay is shocked to see it work. As she introduces herself to Kreitz, she realizes she's talking with a monster in a dungeon who considers her a friend. She wants to know what Kreitz wants her to do, and he tells her to do whatever she wants, because she's in a new body, so she won't be able to show her true power anyway. Clay is surprised by the shield attached to her body, because she can't remove it, and Kreitz notes that when the underlings are created, anything they have on them becomes part of their body. She wonders if what they're doing is right, and Kreitz tells her she shouldn't worry about it, because the skeletons don't have any will, but he's also happy to work with her because she reached the 9th floor. She's shocked he knows about her, and he mentions she's popular among the monsters, because they heard she was beaten and tamed by Belle. He doesn't believe the rumors, because he has never heard of a human being tamed, but he's shocked when Clay mentions it's true. She senses the party, and Kreitz is impressed by her, but he asks her if she's ready to kill fellow adventurers. But she remembers how her father told her that people get up to no good when they're in a dungeon, so she should never let her guard down in front of them, because they're just enemies who can talk. We see a party tried to take advantage of her in the dungeon, but she ended up killing all of them, and she tells Kreitz she doesn't have any allies. They reach the party, and as Clay fights one of them, she sees a sorcerer behind him chanting a spell, so she knows once he's ready to fire his attack, he will pull back his teammate and launch a wide-ranged attack. She's impressed by the eyes of the skeleton, because she can even see people in the back, which allows her to see that the thief of their group is about to launch a surprise attack. He tries to hit her with his knife, but Clay throws his friend at him, and Kreitz is surprised by how strong she is. All of them pull back as the sorcerer is ready to launch a huge fire attack, and Kreitz notes they can survive against it, but he still wants Clay to do something about it. She remembers the time her father told her about magic, where he wondered if a person had magical power, they might be able to cut it. As the sorcerer shoots a huge fireball at them, she applies magic to her shield and cuts it in half, which shocks everyone. The party decides to retreat, while two of them stay back to buy them time. The thief throws a knife at Clay, but as she dodges it, it hits Kreitz in the head. The two decide to run to the stairs while everyone is distracted, and Kreitz decides to let them go because the stairs aren't under his jurisdiction. He wonders if Clay wants to go after them, but she decides against it because she already got enough experience. Belle returns Clay to her body, and she asks her what she thought of the party. Clay mentions they work together well, so she can see how they managed to get to the 7th floor, but she's disappointed when Belle gets a notice the party is retreating. Clay thinks they should have attacked again with a plan, but Belle mentions they probably thought they couldn't beat her, so they decided to go back. She asks Kreitz what he thinks of Clay, and he notes she was amazing, but she doesn't belong on the 7th floor since she's too strong. Clay wonders if they have any more work to do, but Belle notes there are no more adventurers on the 7th floor, so there's nothing else to do. Clay is disappointed by this, and she tells her she needs to do more work. Clay and Belle arrive at the basement of the Antimerg Thieves Guild, and Clay is surprised that one of the transportation circles in the dungeon is connected to the guild's basement. The Thieves Guilds are mostly known for gathering information, but they're rumored to be involved in assassinations. They meet a man named Renfren, and Belle is surprised to see him since he's the guild master, but he explains that he couldn't leave without meeting Clay. He tells her he always saw potential in her, but he never expected her to join the dungeon. She's surprised because even though she knows the Thieves Guild is special, she never knew the dungeon provided them with items. A woman named Furin confirms their delivery, and Clay mentions that the thieves registered with the guild are given exploration bags and return scrolls, which she found useful. She thinks they were all set up by Belle, but she tells Clay that her predecessors were the ones who set up the system. She reveals that there were hardly any thieves in the explorer parties before the Thieves Guild, so most of the deaths came from traps, which annoyed her predecessor because the explorers underestimated the traps, and he wanted to educate them. Clay thinks it would have been better to make use of the Adventurers Guild, but Renfren explains that they're a worldwide organization, so it would be difficult to use them just for a single town. Belle explains that they formed an organization just for the town, but Clay wonders if the main Thieves Guild is okay with it. So she reveals that they were warned to join the main guild, but they ignored it, and the guild sent assassins after them. So she and her predecessor went to talk with them, but they decided to attack, so her predecessor made them vanish, and after that, no one bothered them again. Renfren wonders if Clay has found her father, and she thinks he made it to the 10th floor. Renfren asks her what floor she has reached, and as she tells him she got to the 9th floor, he suddenly attacks her with his knife, but she blocks it. He wonders what floor she thinks he can reach, and she believes he can get to the 8th floor, which impresses Furin, because even the Adventurers Guild has only made it to the 7th floor. But Belle isn't surprised, because she knows that he was the greatest assassin of the Thieves Guild. As they're about to leave, he tells Clay that they have no record of her father ever leaving the dungeon, which makes her realize he must still be inside. After they return to the dungeon, Clay wonders if it's okay that they're just doing verbal agreements for deliveries and retrievals. But Belle reveals that they do send the necessary documents, and each expanded bag is marked individually for tracking. A slime suddenly spits out a piece of paper, and she reveals that by having a pair of slimes, they can have one slime eat the paper while the other one spits it out. Clay thinks she can use the markers on the bags to find her father, but she thinks she should reach the 10th floor first, because if she asks Belle for help, her father would be disappointed. She asks Belle about her next task, and she's told to help Rangard repair the bags. She's quickly able to finish, and Rangard tells her to leave her weapon with him, saying he will do maintenance on it. She thinks that weapons imbued with magic don't require maintenance, but he explains that it's just a rumor, and he tells her he will adjust her weapon to work better with her. She mentions she was taught never to adjust a weapon, and instead put them to the greatest use as they are, but he thinks a weapon and its user should elevate each other. She doesn't want to be the only one getting such treatment, but he tells her she's one of them, so it isn't wrong for her to get special treatment. Clay shows her dagger to Belle, who tells her there's no point in adjusting it, because it hasn't accepted her as its owner, so it isn't able to display its true power. She wonders where Clay got the weapon from, and when she reveals that her father gave it to her, Belle realizes that it's from the 10th floor of the dungeon. She explains how the weapons on the 10th floor are overpowered, so they placed restrictions on them to make sure that only people who have reached the 10th floor can use them. She offers to remove the restrictions, but Clay wants to be able to handle it herself. Belle takes her to the area where the monsters live, and Clay is surprised seeing how big it is. After she's introduced to the monsters, she thinks they might be hostile towards her, but she realizes that all of them are friendly. Belle tells her they're in the shared area, where monsters who like to interact with others live. But those who want to be alone are given separate rooms, which have transfer circles that can take them straight to work. They arrive at the training area, which is made in such a way that it can be observed from the outside. But those who are inside can't see the observers, and there's a barrier around it so that no one can interfere. A person can only access it by using a crystal, so no one can use it if they aren't registered. They're interrupted by 3 goblins named Shielmerg, Bandig and Bondog, and Clay remembers that she defeated them before she started working in the dungeon. She's surprised by their intelligence, and Shielmerg tells her they're high goblins, but Bondog suddenly asks her if she will have his children. Shielmerg tells him he shouldn't talk about breeding until he has defeated her, and Belle gets annoyed at them. Clay realizes the goblins want to fight her again, because they were defeated without getting a chance to show their skill, and she can also sense their bloodlust. She accepts their request, so Belle tries to explain how the arena works, but seeing the look on Clay's face, Belle realizes she's confused, so she simply tells Clay how to enter and exit the arena. She enters the arena, and Shielmerg mentions that her equipment looks different from before, so he offers to fight another time, but she tells him she has her favorite weapon with her. She tells them to cast support magic in advance, which makes him wonder if she plans to take it easy on them. But she mentions that there aren't any traps there, so she has an advantage, since she can focus solely on them. Shielmerg buffs the other 2 goblins, and they charge in, but she jumps back to dodge their attacks. They shoot a fireball at her, but she cuts through it, burning one of them, as she uses the opportunity to take out the other goblin, and she also throws her dagger, hitting Shielmerg in the head. They give up and exit the arena, but as she's about to do the same, a dragon named Relman appears behind her. He knows that she's there for training, and she realizes that Belle told him about her. He reveals that he's a monster from the 10th floor, thinking he will be a good training partner for her, and she prepares to fight him. She thinks she can't cut his skin with her current skill level, so she quickly gets behind him, but as she tries to attack, he suddenly breathes fire. He's surprised that she was able to dodge his attack, but she still thinks she's in a bad position because he can move his neck and tail freely. She wants to use the opportunity to improve her weaker skills, so she uses her technique to sense the magic power in his body, allowing her to dodge his attacks. He's surprised by her movement, making him wonder if she's predicting his moves, and she slashes him with her dagger, as she notes that his scales are tough, but she knows that her attacks are working. She realizes that she was able to improve her precision at sensing presences and magic power, thinking it's because she spent time as a skeleton. Roman breathes fire again, but she slices it in half and cuts one of his fingers. She jumps up in the air and stabs one of his eyes, but he manages to hit her with his breath. She loses one of her arms, but he's impressed because she imbued magical power into her arm to deflect the attack. He mentions that they're both in terrible condition, so they decide to end the fight, and as she leaves the arena, all of her injuries are healed. She remembers her father could imbue magic directly into his body, but she could never do it, and had to transfer magic power into weapons to fight. When she was about to be hit by Roman's attack, she couldn't use her weapon to block it, so she imbued her arm with magic, and she wonders if her arm was destroyed by the attack or from her own magic. But she's happy she's getting better at it, and she thinks about using her magical power to increase her speed and accuracy. She asks Belle about her role in the dungeon, because ever since she arrived, she hasn't done anything. But Belle thinks being present already counts as work, and she mentions that she hasn't decided what job Clay should have. So she tells Clay to stay by her side, so that she can see all the work that gets done in the dungeon. She wonders what she needs to do today, and Belle tells her to help make treasure. She takes her to a room, and Clay is disgusted by how filthy it is. She tells Clay that Rangard has already prepared the items for them, so she can just put in whatever items she likes. Clay wonders if her dagger is also just a random item, but Belle assures her that it's special. She explains that on the first levels, they give out ordinary goods, but she got bored of making the same items. She mentions that she came up with a few unusual ideas, but Rangard rejected all of them, and she tells Clay to help her come up with new items. Clay agrees to do it, but tells her they need to clean up afterwards. They go to Rangard with their new ideas, but he rejects all of them, and he invites Clay to come see how equipment is made, but she wants to clean the room first. After that, Rangard takes Clay to a room, which Belle dug up with her magic, and seeing how big it is, Clay wonders if she will ever be able to beat her. He takes her to a shared workshop being run by the golems, and he explains that he can't make equipment for all of the chests in the dungeon because there's too many of them, so he taught the golems to run the workshop. He reveals that the golems have different personalities, and he needs to give them work according to their strengths. They go to Rangard's workspace, and he gives her 2 daggers to see which one she likes more, but she tells him she can use either of them without issues. He thinks she must prefer one, because he wants to use her preference to adjust her dagger. But she notes it isn't necessary, since she might find a better one in the future, but he thinks there's no guarantee that it's going to happen. She realizes that one of her daggers was made by Rangard, while her other daggers were made by the golems, and she wonders if the treasure chests on the 9th floor contain weapons made by him. So he mentions that he has made weapons for the 9th floor, but he isn't sure if they have been put in the chests. He tells her the quality of his weapons will be the same as the ones made by the golems, but she's just happy she gets to use a weapon made by a person close to her. He explains that the system in the dungeon hasn't changed since the time of Belle's predecessor, who was obsessed with the dungeon, and he wishes Belle would be more like that. He explains how she told him they needed more workers, so he sets strict conditions to show her how hard it is to find someone, but he never expected her to come across a person like Clay. He thinks she's looking for friends instead of workers, because she got lonely after seeing how adventurers explore the dungeon. He mentions that she used to spend all her time with her old master before she became the administrator, which makes Clay think about her father. Clay goes to Belle's room, and she thinks about how Rangard could have done something about Belle's loneliness. So Clay asks her what she thinks about him, and she mentions that he's like her family, saying he's like a grandfather who refuses to retire. Belle notices that Clay doesn't eat vegetables, and she thinks Belle is the same as her, but she explains that she can't eat anything that requires cooking. Clay mentions that she was taught to survive on water and meat when exploring, but since she's just chilling at the moment, she decides to cook the vegetables. She's about to use her dagger to cut the vegetables, so Belle tells her they have cooking knives in the kitchen, but she thinks it's best to use the blade she's familiar with. She cuts the vegetables and puts them to boil, as Belle wonders when she's going to season it, but she thinks only professional chefs can add seasonings, so an amateur like her isn't going to do it. She recalls how her father told her that cooking can kill a person, so she should be careful not to add seasonings, and she mentions when she tried adding salt one time, but it turned her boiled vegetables into a salty soup. They're interrupted by Rangard, who tells her that only a little salt should be used when cooking because it might kill her. He tells them he came to get water, and Belle reveals that when a dwarf asks for water, they're asking for alcohol, which surprises Clay. The vegetables are cooked, and Clay finds them normal, but Belle and Rangard are shocked by how bad they are. She thinks it's fine as long as it's edible, which shocks the others, so Rangard tells them they should learn to cook. They ask Furin for help, and she starts by teaching them how to fry vegetables and salt them for flavor. They follow her instructions, and they're able to make a dish they find delicious, but she wants to teach them another recipe. So she goes to gather ingredients, and she's shocked when she comes across dragon meat. She notes they can get a large amount of money for it, but Belle wants to eat it, so Furin cooks it for them, and they all find it delicious. As Furin is about to leave, Belle gives her dragon meat as a gift for teaching them, and she notes Renfrin is a great cook. So Belle wonders if they should ask him to cook it for them, but Clay stops her and tells Furin to take the meat and leave. After that, Clay thinks about how even though cooking is new to her, she felt she already knew the techniques, which makes her wonder if there are other things she has been overlooking. She recalls her fight with Relman, but all it does is make her remember how delicious dragon meat is. Clay goes to Rangard, who returns the weapons she gave him for maintenance, and he notes there wasn't much to do with them. She tells him about all the different ways to use the weapons, which surprises him because he has never heard her talk so much. He gives her a female armor, and she tells him she already has one, but he doesn't think it's any good because he knows the dungeon's armor shows a lot of skin. He tells her that the armors were made during the time of Belle's predecessor, who ordered him to create female armors that show skin, but Clay becomes upset hearing this, so he tells her to take the one he has made for her as an apology. She tries it on, and she likes it, so she decides to keep it. Clay meets Belle, who's happy that she came to show her new clothes even though it's her off day, but Belle is disappointed when she mentions that she came for another reason. She wants to continue to explore the dungeon on her off days, and she doesn't want her life to be protected by the crystal because it takes away the risk of exploring. But Belle suggests that instead of putting her life at risk, she can just be banned from exploring if her copy dies. She recalls that she has been trained to explore the dungeon since childhood, so she thinks if she isn't able to explore it, it's the same as being dead, so she accepts the offer. Clay enters the dungeon, but she needs to restart from the beginning of the 9th floor, and as she starts to move forward, she comes across a fire spirit. It summons 3 allies, and they attack her, but she steps back to dodge their attacks. She realizes that the main body is observing her, so she decides to go on the offensive as she jumps in the air and throws her knife at the spirit, allowing her to defeat it. But it disappears without dropping a gem, which makes her wonder if it's really dead. A door suddenly opens with a chest inside, and as she's about to open it, she realizes it has a magical trap in it, but she manages to avoid it. She finds a sword inside the chest, but she's disappointed because she's looking for a dagger. She senses another spirit, making her wonder if only spirits are on patrol today. But she tells herself she shouldn't look at things from the administrative side, and she should just act like a normal explorer. She tries to sneak up on the spirit, but it sees her and attacks with mental magic, but she blocks the attack and chops off its head. She realizes that her training is paying off since she can damage the spirit by using magical power, but she needs to be careful about how much magic she has left. She defeats another monster, and she realizes that using magic power against it is of no use, so she needs to get better at determining how to fight different enemies. She gets tired, so instead of pushing herself, she uses the return scroll to go back, and she's happy to see Belle welcoming her back. Belle tells Clay they will be interviewing monsters today, telling her to bring a weapon with her, which makes her wonder if there's a practical portion to the exams, but Belle explains that it's because they sometimes get attacked. Clay wonders if it's okay for her to accompany Belle, since she's an explorer, but Belle mentions that if they worry about her being an explorer, she won't be able to do any work. She knows she'll be talking to monsters, and Belle tells her to consider it as an extra perk, since her contract prevents her from talking to outsiders. Belle teleports them to the dungeon's final room, and Clay realizes the table and couch are out of place. She wonders if Belle places them before the interviews, and Belle notes they're always present in the room. But she mentions when they fought, she made sure they were away from the couches because she didn't want them to get destroyed. She mentions that she makes a separate summoning circle for each candidate, and even though Clay feels like it's a hassle, Belle notes that each monster is different, so she needs to take these measures. She tells Clay she will handle the interviews, telling her to speak if she notices anything standing out. Belle summons the first monster, and Clay can't understand their conversation as she doesn't speak their language. After the monster goes back, she wonders about the purpose of the interviews. So Belle explains that it's to determine whether they will hire the monster, and she mentions that seeing each other before they start working also calms their nerves. There are monsters who think she's weak, and they don't want to work for a person weaker than them, so it's also an opportunity to educate them. Clay realizes that she will hire any monster with a little bit of intelligence, and she mentions that it's what makes the place feel more dungeon-like. Clay tells her she couldn't understand the monster they just interviewed, which makes Belle realize that Clay doesn't have any communication-based abilities, and she doesn't have the tools to help her with that at the moment. So Clay decides to just watch and understand as much as she can. Belle summons the next monster, which is a giant cat, and she tells her to sit on the couch, but she realizes it can't move. After Belle teleports her back, Clay is surprised that she's hiring monsters that can't even move, and she explains she can just put them in charge of a fixed room. Clay is surprised to see how big the next monster is, and it speaks the same language as her, and she realizes it's a monster for the 10th floor. After Belle teleports it back, Clay asks her about the magic gems that the monster was talking about. So Belle reminds her of the stone she used to register herself into the crystal, and she explains that the same technique is used to imbue magical power into the stones, which are called magic gems. Clay wonders what the monster meant when he said he can get the gems from the demon world, so Belle reveals that the world they're currently in is known to the monsters as the demon world, which confuses Clay. She explains that most monsters can't use magical powers, but Clay mentions that Shilmerd was able to use it, so Belle explains it wasn't magic, but instead spiritual arts. She tells her that unlike them, monsters make an offering rather than altering and manipulating magical power, and they also have no technique to handle it, so they think Belle is a demon who can control that power. They think the world is full of other demons like her, so they call it the demon world, and Clay thinks she should tell them there are people in the world who can't use magic. But she notes they don't have interactions with the outside world, so they won't believe her. They summon the next monster named Heldan, who reveals that he killed the interviewee and took his place. He thinks Belle is the demon lord, and he mentions that he came there to look for magic gems, so she decides to kill him because she believes that rule breakers should be punished with force. Clay decides to face him, and Belle thinks about how Clay has been training her magical power, which has been subconsciously having an effect on her body. There's a limit to how much she can move her body through muscle alone, and with these limits, she can't defeat high-ranking monsters. So she needs to use magical power to overcome her limits, but if she uses it carelessly, it can lead to her death. She easily dodges all of Heldan's attacks, and uses her dagger to cut off his arm. She manages to defeat him, and Belle asks him if he has any last words, but he decides to attack her, so she throws him in the air, and Clay delivers the finishing blow. She wonders if they're going to continue with the interviews, but Belle notes they're done for the day. Clay asks her what they're going to do with the body, so she explains that she plans on making him a zombie, because the high-ranking monsters in the earlier floors act too wildly, so it's difficult to find replacements for them. Clay thinks he's too strong for the earlier floors, but Belle mentions that after becoming a zombie, he will lose his intelligence, which will balance things out. She wonders if Clay is okay with her reusing the body, and she mentions that she heard rumors about dead explorers being seen as zombies. She thinks it's good that she hasn't come across her father as a zombie, but she believes that if Belle fought him with her full strength, there would be nothing left of him. Clay can feel that she's getting stronger, but she knows she has a long way to go before reaching Belle's level. Meanwhile, the party that Clay defeated when she changed bodies with the skeleton once again enters the dungeon. They come across the cat monster, and even though they manage to defeat it, they get injured, which makes them realize they were too fixated on beating the skeleton, so they want a fresh start. Belle tells Clay she plans to change the map of the 5th floor, but they need to be careful, or they could get complaints. She tells Clay to make the map, but she explains that she doesn't know anything about it. Belle thinks it's the reason why the map will feel fresh, and she shows Clay what the current map is, telling her to use it as a reference to make a similar map, but she also wants her to add new elements. Clay wonders why there aren't any traps in the dungeon, and she realizes it's because the monsters might fall for them as well. She thinks it might be okay if they're placed only in the doors, but Belle notes that the monsters might open it for fun. Clay thinks about the layout of the dungeon, but she's surprised since it's so simple, and she wonders if something's missing. She realizes that the monsters are also an important part of the dungeon, so she wants to know which monsters are going to be placed there, because she wants to make the map in accordance to their strengths and weaknesses, which shocks Belle and Rangard. She wonders how they handled it before, and Belle reveals that they do it by drawing lots. At first, they positioned the monsters according to their traits and nature, but as they started to hire more monsters, their positions started to overlap, so they switched to a lottery system. Clay agrees to use their method to position the monsters, and Belle tells her she can do it in whatever way she likes. So she tells her to give all the information on the monsters, but Belle suddenly mentions that they will do it through lots. Clay makes the map, but Rangard points out the walls of the rooms with treasure chests are too thin, and the golems can't slip through it. So she redesigns the map, and he thinks it looks good. She wonders why the visibility in the dungeon is bad, and Belle explains that it's a specially prepared element unique to the dungeon. Their floors don't have any unique characteristics, so if proper staging isn't done, it will feel like a simple cave, and she asks Clay if she has any ideas on how to make it feel more like a dungeon. Belle takes her to the core of the dungeon, and she reveals that she's the only one who can open the seal that protects it. They come across another door, which only opens once she matches her magical power wavelengths to it, and as they enter it, two spirits start to bother Clay, so Belle pulls them away. She reveals that the room is up against the boundary of the spirit world, so spirits can take shape there. She mentions that she can't make a floor on her own, so she asks the spirits for help. There are several spirits present there, and each of them helps with something specific in the dungeon, like the light spirit helps light up the floors, while the dark spirit obstructs vision. She gives the map to the earth spirit, and after listening to her instruction, he gives her a small glowing ball. Clay apologizes since she didn't do anything, but Belle mentions that her presence made the spirits behave themselves, saying they're usually chaotic. They go to the crystal, where Belle uses the glowing ball to add the new floor, and after that, they go to meet Rangard. Clay wonders what he's going to do, so he takes her with him, and as they enter the newly added floor, we see that it looks like a normal cave. But Rangard smashes his hammer into the ground, transforming the cave into a dungeon, and Clay wonders if he used magic, but he reveals the hammer turns the thoughts in his head into reality. Clay wonders what will happen if an explorer tries to enter the 5th floor, so Belle reveals that the guardian room of the previous floor is closed until the 5th floor is completed. She takes Clay to the source slime, and she thinks about how slimes are a dangerous enemy because they dissolve anything, and only magic attacks work against them. But in the Antimerg dungeon, the slimes are weak, and they never attack the explorers, so they're usually just ignored. Belle plans to cut off a few slimes from the source to place on the 5th floor, but Clay thinks the process is sloppy. Belle mentions that they use tools imbued with recovery magic to split them, otherwise their skin will rupture, and they will die after they lose their magic power. Clay is surprised by their lack of strength, so Belle explains that their job isn't to fight, but as she tries to explain their duty, she realizes that Clay isn't understanding her. So she simply tells her the slimes are used to clean the dungeon, as they use their bodies to dissolve things, which makes her realize that there are more slimes in the earlier floors because of the dead bodies there. Clay sees a tiny slime, as Belle reveals that it used too much magic power and is having difficulty breaking down things, so they return it to the source and cut off a new one. Clay wonders if the source slime will shrink if they keep doing it, but Belle mentions that they feed it magic gems to resupply its magical powers. Clay asks her if the slimes that are cut off from the source have different personalities, but she notes they don't have intelligence and just carry out the tasks they're given. After that, they carry out the lottery to determine where the monsters are going to be placed on the 5th floor, and everyone appears to be enjoying the experience. Clay hears rumors about the king giving his throne to his son, but she isn't sure what the situation is because Antimerg is far away from the capital and it's a self-governing town. She thinks about that after seeing what Belle is wearing, and she wonders what's going on, so Belle tells her she's going to meet the king. She notes that the dungeon was made in a remote area, and after explorers started gathering there, a town was born, and the kingdom came to collect taxes. They wanted to take control of the dungeon, and they were the reason why Belle's organization got into a fight with the main thieves guild. So Belle's predecessor made a contract with the king, which made the town self-governing. But since the town was on their land, they allowed the kingdom to purchase the gems produced in the dungeon, which can be exchanged to purchase armors and weapons. The problem is that the contract was only for the previous king's rule, and since a new king has been appointed, the kingdom has the right to challenge the dungeon's master. So she's going to the castle for a showdown. saying she will form a new contract with the king. Clay thinks they should be the one to come to her, since they're the challengers, but she mentions that she's the only one who can use the transport circles. She asks for Clay's opinion on her clothes, but she mentions that they don't fit her, and she wonders if Belle will be wearing them in the final room of the dungeon. But she explains that she saved another outfit for that occasion, revealing that her predecessor used the one she's wearing when he went to meet the king. So Rangard alters the clothes for her, but he tells her they aren't as strong as before. She plans to take Clay with her, which means she will need proper clothes, so Rangard gives her the choice of a maid outfit or a guard's armor. She thinks it will be better to move in the maid's outfit, but she would look more intimidating in the armor. So she asks them for their opinion, and they both want her to be the maid. After she changes into the maid's outfit, she wonders where she's going to put her dagger, and Rangard mentions that people usually hide it in their skirt. But since she doesn't want to do that, she ties it around her waist. She asks Belle when they're going to leave, but she's surprised when Belle tells her they're leaving the next day. She thinks Belle should start to prepare earlier, but she notes it causes her to lose things, and Clay thinks it's because the rooms are a mess, so she suggests cleaning them. The next day, they're about to leave, and Belle mentions that they will go to a different building than the castle, because there will be violence, so they don't want to attract the public's attention. They arrive using the transport circle, where a man named Haim takes them to an arena. He leaves to get the king, and Clay is surprised they aren't already present there, but Belle notes she didn't tell them the exact time she would arrive. The king arrives, along with 3 of the top knights and magicians in the country, and one of them named Lestance tells Belle and Clay to kneel. But the king tells him off, saying they're equal in standing. Belle introduces herself, and the people accompanying the king are surprised they're going to fight a woman, but the king tells them they shouldn't let their guard down. She mentions that she allowed him to have a party of up to 6 people, but he notes there was no one else who could match his companion's strength, so he only selected 3 people to make sure no one would get in their way. He reminds her that if they win, they will get control of the Antimer dungeon, but she explains that if they lose, she wants them to continue supporting her organization. The king mentions that his father told him the man he fought was accompanied by a girl, and he wonders if it was Belle. She confirms his suspicions, making him think that since Clay is with her, it means she's her successor, which surprises Clay, but Belle notes that it isn't the case. As the fight begins, Lestance and another man named Algard rush towards her because the previous king told them she can cast magic quickly, so they want to attack her before she can chant a spell. Lestance thrusts his spear at her, but he's shocked when she deflects it, and Algard follows up after him, but she blocks him as well. The last member of the party named Kiska was told to stay back while they finish the fight, but he thinks even if he was allowed to fight, there's nothing he can do. Clay thinks they're skilled, but their movements are sloppy because they aren't accustomed to having their physical abilities enhanced through supporting magic. She wonders if the 2 people outside used the magic on them, and they hid it to make it seem like there were only 3 opponents. The king can't believe the strongest people in the country can't even scratch Belle, but he knows he's allowed to do anything because no rules were defined. So he signals Haim to attack Clay, but she suddenly punches him. The king tells Belle to stop moving, or they're going to hurt Clay, but he's shocked seeing that Haim has been defeated. He realizes that Belle can kill him anytime she wants, so he decides to surrender. Algard wonders if they can challenge her again if they enter the dungeon, and she promises to face them if they make it to the end. Before they return to the castle, the king blushes as he asks for Clay's name, but she thinks he wants to use her as a hostage. She believes he will use her name to get info on her, so she tells him her name is Rangard. He wonders if she will meet him again, but Belle interferes, telling him he can ask questions another time, and they return to the dungeon. But Renfren gets a letter from the king, asking him to look into Rangard. He sends the letter to Belle, who tells Clay to explain the situation to Rangard, and she starts to cry, because she knows he will be angry with her since she's in charge. We learn that Clay never knew her real parents, because she was adopted, but she knows that they had connections with the Thieves Guild, and they died because of an accident. She was placed in the care of the guild, and she grew attached to her new father, who decided to raise her, so she wants to find him in the dungeon. She visits Belle, asking her if she ever goes to sleep, because she's always in the dungeon, but she says she sees it as her home since she grew up there. Clay asks her if she's always working, so she explains that she's usually doing what she wants to do, saying work is like a household chore to her. But Clay notes there aren't any rooms meant for entertainment, so she asks Belle if she has any hobbies, but she doesn't have an answer, and Clay realizes that she does nothing but manage the dungeon. She asks Clay what she wants to do today, thinking she must be exhausted because they went to the royal castle, so she deserves to take a break. Belle promises to pay her even if she does nothing, telling her it's a reward for all her work. But she can't think of anything she wants to do, so she tells Belle that she wants to continue working, saying she wants to earn her pay. But Belle reveals that she can't think of a job she can give her, because most of the tasks require magic, so Clay decides to take a break. She watches the other monsters, and the Minotaur approaches her, introducing himself as Pacamo. He asks her why she's staring at the monsters, saying it's making them uncomfortable. So she reveals that she's looking for the monster who talked to her during her first day, but she wonders why everyone's avoiding her. Pacamo recalls that Belle threatened to destroy anyone who offends Clay, but he tells her they're probably just nervous because they know she was able to put up a fight against Relman. He asks her who she's looking for, so she reveals that a monster recognized her as the daughter of the Wind Slicer, saying she wants to confirm if the Wind Slicer is her father. He wonders how she's supposed to find the monster, so she tells him she still remembers its voice, and she hears a cat talking, realizing it's the monster she's looking for. So she approaches the cat, saying she wants to ask her something, and the cat introduces herself as Binky, but she won't stop talking. So Clay claps her hands, and all the monsters stare at her, as she tells Binky to calm down, but Pacamo tells her she made a scene, so he suggests going somewhere else. They move away from the other monsters, and Clay asks Binky about the Wind Slicer, so she explains that he's a dangerous explorer, saying the monsters he killed heard the sound of wind before they died. But Clay knows that the source of the sound is a throwing knife, which moves so fast that the monsters can't see it until it hits them. She asks Binky if she fought him before, so she explains that she saw him, but he killed her before she could do anything, saying she didn't even hear the sound of wind. Clay recalls that her father enjoys fighting with his fists, and he once told her that he will use weapons if he's up against a powerful opponent. But she knows that he likes fighting at close quarters, and she thinks a throwing knife isn't his weapon of choice, so she believes he isn't the Wind Slicer. But she notes that the monsters on the 10th floor are extremely powerful, thinking he won't be able to punch them to death, so she thinks he must have changed his fighting style. Pacamo wonders how Binky found out that she's the daughter of the Wind Slicer, so she reveals that there's a famous story about him, saying everyone knows that he brought his daughter along because he wants to train her. After that, Clay thinks about the Wind Slicer, thinking her father is the only one crazy enough to bring his daughter into the dungeon, so she thinks he must be the Wind Slicer. She realizes that she has never seen him get serious, and she remembers her goal to surpass him, thinking she doesn't have what it takes. But she still wants to get stronger, and she notes that she needs a weapon made by Rangard to continue making progress. Belle takes Clay to the goblin quarters, and she realizes that it's actually a village. Belle tells a goblin that they're just going to do an inspection, as Clay notes that goblins are weak monsters assigned to the early floors. She knows that they don't drop gems, so they don't transfer back to the crystal, and she thinks Belle wants them to multiply so that they won't go extinct. But she knows that goblins reproduce by capturing women of other races, and Belle realizes that something's bothering her, so she explains that she's thinking about how goblins are born. So Belle shows her a farm, saying it's a goblin field, and Clay thinks they're using it to grow vegetables. But Belle reveals that it's used for growing goblins, and a golem harvests one of them, as Clay realizes that the sprout is growing from its horn. Belle explains that her predecessor came up with the process, saying they had a hard time capturing female explorers, so her predecessor researched the goblins and realized that they're like vegetables. Belle reveals that when a goblin dies, the dungeon absorbs it, and the tree produces goblin seeds, which can be planted on the field. The baby goblins are given supplements to help them grow, and she mentions that she wants to upgrade the goblins, but she can't improve the technique used to grow them because she was never taught how to do it. But she explains that she hasn't given up, saying she's still doing her research. Clay realizes that they're treated like prisoners, and Belle reveals that they eat the goblin plants if they're allowed to roam freely, so the golems keep them restrained until they're ready to move into the village. Clay knows that the adventurers always defeat monsters, so a system is needed to make sure they don't go extinct, but she wonders why Belle is trying so hard just to maintain the dungeon. We meet a boy named Fen, the leader of the party that Clay defeated, and he talks to his friend named Rada, who tells him that there are murderers in the dungeon. He wonders why the Adventurers Guild isn't doing anything, so Rada explains that it's because they look harmless, and there's no evidence that they committed crimes in the dungeon. At the Adventurers Guild, we meet a girl named Meliant as she sees a group of adventurers, and everyone calls them murderers. But she believes they're innocent, and she ends up joining their party. We return to the dungeon as we see a noob that's in trouble, but the leader of the murderers named Hilkmast saves him, and he gives the newbies advice on how to defeat goblins. They thank him for helping them out, thinking he's amazing, and Meliant thinks the rumors can't be true. We cut to the guildmaster of the Adventurers Guild, who talks to his assistant about the murderers, saying they need to be punished because they're breaking the rules. But the higher-ups have taken a liking to them, so he can't do anything. His assistant reveals that the Thieves Guild warned everyone about them, but she tells him about Meliant, saying they were able to deceive her, and she's already in the dungeon. He promises to handle the situation, and his assistant leaves, as Renfern appears behind him, saying his guild will take care of them. He can't believe the higher-ups are allowing them to commit murder, and he thinks they should also be dealt with, saying he wants what's best for the Adventurers Guild. Belle receives a message from the Thieves Guild, and she learns about the murderers, so she meets up with Clay, asking her if she knows the rules of the dungeon. So she mentions that the biggest rule is that explorers aren't supposed to mess with each other, and Belle reveals that her predecessor allowed humans to kill each other in the dungeon. But she explains that she won't allow it to happen while she's in charge, saying today's task is to deal with the explorers who aren't following the rules. Her plan is to capture them and turn them into zombies, and Clay realizes that she's dressed like an executioner. She tells Clay to change her clothes, and she explains that her plan is to wait for them to take the bait before making a move. We see the murderers as they defeat the boss on the 4th floor, and Hilkmast tells Meliant that he's glad she came along because they really needed a healer in their party. She's starting to trust them, but a man named Bugs suddenly attacks her, causing her to drop her weapon. Hilkmast explains that nobody can save her because the boss room will remain closed until they move to the next floor. Belle realizes it's time to make their move, but Clay asks her what's happening, so she explains that Meliant is about to get killed by the murderers, and Clay thinks they're despicable, so she wants to help get rid of them. Meliant wonders what she should do next, realizing she's in trouble, and Bugs promises to go easy on her if she behaves. But golems suddenly appear, and Hilkmast tries to take them down, but he gets pushed back, realizing they're stronger than they look. Bugs tries to smash one of them, but his attack doesn't work, and he can't believe how tough they are. Hilkmast thinks they should just proceed to the next floor, thinking the golems will kill Meliant, but they give her mace back and tell her to get lost. The murderers enter the next floor, and they see another golem, so they decide to gang up on it, but they struggle against it. Belle suddenly appears behind them, and she takes them away. So they become confused, wondering where they are, and Belle appears with Clay, telling them they're in the final room of the dungeon. Hilkmast realizes she's the final boss, thinking she must be incredibly powerful, but he notes that his party is in perfect condition, so he thinks they might be able to defeat her. Belle reveals that she knows what they did to Meliant, and they're surprised that she knows about it, realizing they need to get rid of her. Hilkmast tells his companions not to hold back, as Clay looks into their eyes, realizing they're used to killing people. She prepares to fight them, as Bugs charges in, but she dodges, as she recalls that Belle told her not to cut off their limbs, because she wants their bodies to be intact when they turn into zombies, so Clay decides to target his torso. Hilkmast fights Belle, who easily parries his attacks, and he realizes he's no match for her. He looks at Bugs, realizing he's already dead, and Clay reveals that their mage ran away. So Hilkmast admits defeat, and he tries to talk his way out, promising to become Belle's underling if she lets him go. But she explains that she doesn't need him, because she already has the Thieves Guild, and she knows he can't be trusted, so she decides to kill him. They see the mage running away, and Clay wonders if she should chase after him, but Belle decides to take care of him, and she fires a supercharged arrow, which kills him in an instant. Clay is impressed that she was able to use such a powerful spell, realizing she was holding back during their last fight. But Clay tells her that she destroyed half of the man's body, and she realizes that she screwed up. We see Meliant as she encounters Finn's party, and he tells her they won't harm her. She recognizes them as the Ice Wolves, and she knows that they have a good reputation, so she realizes that she's going to be okay. Clay starts eating, as she notes that her cooking is getting better, but she wonders what monsters do for their meals. Rangard joins her, asking her if she made the food, so she reveals that she cooked it, saying she's been practicing how to prepare food, but she knows that she has a long way to go. She asks Belle what monsters do for their meals, so she reveals that the answer is different for each species, thinking it's better if she just shows her. She takes her to the field, and Clay wonders if they're outside, but Belle explains that they're underground, saying the place was made to resemble the outside world. She shows Clay a map of the area, and they start exploring it. They see Pacamo eating grass, and he tells Clay to give it a try, saying it tastes amazing. She wants to eat it, but Belle tells her it isn't for humans, so he thinks it's a shame, and he continues to enjoy his meal. Clay sees ordinary animals, and Belle tells her the field is a hunting ground, saying the monsters hunt them for food. She senses a monster, so she tells Belle that she needs a moment, and she appears behind Binky, asking her if she's hunting. She realizes that Clay is there to observe the monsters, so she tells Clay to keep up with her if she wants to see her hunt. Binky starts jumping around the forest, thinking Clay will never catch up to her, because the forest is her domain. But she suddenly appears beside her, so Binky is shocked, and she crashes into a tree. Clay tells Belle that the forest is beautiful, saying she can't believe it was artificially created, and they continue to explore the area. They see golems working on the field, and Clay asks Belle why the golems are doing everything in the dungeon. So she reveals that they used to assign roles based on specialties, but the workers got fixated on fine details, and they even clashed with other monsters. So they decided to teach golems how to do everything, saying they aren't as efficient, but they're easier to manage. They reach a lake, where they see Relman, and he's surprised to see Clay, who thinks she interrupted his meal. But Belle explains that he was just taking a bath, and he mentions that it's important to maintain proper hygiene. Clay sees the boss from the 8th floor, realizing that it's also taking a bath, and she thinks it looks cute. They head to the kitchen, where they see a giant cooking, and he mentions that he's making medicine. Belle sees the grass root he's using, and they start talking about how to make medicine, but Clay tells them the pot is already boiling over. He shows her the medicine he prepared, and she realizes that it looks terrible, asking him if he's going to eat it. So he explains that he needs it for nourishment, but Belle mentions that it should only be used as medicine, so Clay realizes that they aren't on the same page. After that, Belle tells Clay that she has a special place at the hunting grounds, saying she wants to show it to her, but she sees a light above Clay, and she tells her they need to do something before they go there. She takes Clay to the crystal room, saying it's time to swap out the crystal, because it's about to reach its limit. Clay sees her reflection, and she realizes that there's a notification above her, as Belle explains that it appears above everyone's heads when it's time to change the crystal. She asks for Clay's help, telling her to hold the floating crystal while she transfers control, and she begins the process. It starts glowing, and Clay thinks it's beautiful, but it suddenly stops floating, and she realizes that it's extremely heavy. Belle puts the new crystal in place, and she mentions that the process is done, but she realizes that Clay is struggling to hold the crystal, so she offers to do it for her. But Clay wants to carry it as part of her training, asking Belle where she wants to move it. So she leads her to the origin room, where they see the core, and Clay thinks the dungeon will be wiped out if it's destroyed, because it's considered as the heart and brain of the dungeon. But Belle tells her that it's just a failed attempt at imitating a core, saying her predecessor made it, and its only function is to gather and circulate magical power. But Clay thinks it's impossible to create a core, so she's amazed that Belle's predecessor was able to make an imitation. She puts the crystal down, as Belle decides to reuse it, and she starts chanting, as magical power flows into the crystal. Clay realizes that her predecessor's magic is incredibly dense, thinking he must have been extremely powerful, but the crystal suddenly shatters, so she asks Belle what happened. She explains that she expected this to happen, saying magical stones shatter when she tries to replenish its power. But she thinks she was able to improve her magic, because she was able to make it longer without breaking it. She shows Clay her special place, where they watch the sunset, and Clay thinks it's beautiful. She thinks about everything Belle told her, wondering why she inherited the dungeon, but Belle is glad they got to spend time together, thinking of her as her first friend. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.